Hey friends, hit that subscribe, like, and comment to join this amazing journey. Every click powers new content and means the world to me. Thanks for being the heart of this awesome community. The snow white horse waiting at the edge of night, the wild pulsations breaking the silence with its invisible rider. The last bus left Ash-Willow Valley an hour before the first snow, groaning up the mountain pass while sleet rattled its tarnished windows. After that, the road twisted on alone, one ribbon of cracked asphalt threading pine dark ridges, where phone signals went to die and legends took root as easily as mushrooms after rain. People who lived farther south whispered that the valley possessed only two seasons, a single long winter, and the anxious months spent preparing for its return. They weren't really wrong. By late October, every farmhouse smelled of hickory smoke, every porch was stacked chest high with split oak, and every pantry shelf sagged beneath neat rows of canned beets and venison stew. Only one thing unsettled the valley's flinty calm: those rare nights when an inexplicable vibration shivered up through frost-locked earth, rattling dishes, setting dogs howling, and leaving in its wake an unspoken, marrow-deep dread. Old maps named that pulse Thunder Rock, as if the mountain itself flexed in its sleep. Grandmothers insisted it was a harmless quake. Geologists shrugged and wrote it off as microseismic activity. You felt it rather than heard it, a low, aqueous throbbing in cavities behind your eyes. Yet over the past century, locals had knit that pulse to a different myth entirely. One carried by hush between barns and lamp-blackened cabins. If you felt a tremor, really felt it, a hammering that seemed to borrow your own heartbeat, then you mustn't look toward Rook-Fen Field, the broad hollow where the woods thinned into wind-scoured grass. Because that was where he appeared, glittering and still, an immaculate horse white enough to draw light from its surroundings, standing as though carved from the first snowfall of creation. And somewhere upon its blank saddle, unseen but palpable, perched a rider looking for any mortal unwise enough to answer the thrum. Most newcomers dismissed the tale, just as 22-year-old Laurel Mead did when she arrived to care for her ailing aunt the final week of November. Laurel grew up 2 states east in a suburb where winter meant slush on parking lots and nothing more. She'd studied nursing. She believed in numbers and the logic of blood pressure cuffs. Her first night, she carried logs in for the stove and laughed off Aunt Lennora's muttered warning. If the ground starts beating like a second heart, child, lock the doors. Don't peer out. And God help you, never cross the road to Rook-Fen. Laurel smiled, set the kettle on, told herself Lennora's dementia had progressed. Yet under that seasoned grin her aunt's eyes glimmered with lucid fear, and even after the old woman nodded into sleep a chill stayed coiled in the corners of the farmhouse, something scentless and patient, neither draft nor memory. 3 uneventful days passed. Laurel settled into routine, stoking the iron stove at dawn, spoon-feeding Lenora broth, calling her boyfriend on borrowed cell bars that faded if she moved 3 feet left. When she ventured to the grocery 15 miles away, locals eyed her kindly but closed-lipped, as if protective of their silences. Only the store's cashier, a freckled boy of 19, blurted, "Watch out for the horse," then flushed crimson and rang up her bread. Snow began in earnest that evening, big flakes thudding like ash. The valley hushed, lights glowed amber behind frost-latticed windows, and Laurel finally felt the isolation. No traffic hum, no sirens, just the ticking stove and Lenora's labored breaths. She brewed chamomile, tuned the radio, and fell asleep in the rocker. Sometime deep in the she would never know the exact second, her pulse jolted awake before her mind did. Thud thud, thud thud. Not her own heartbeat. The cadence was too slow, too vast, as if the hill itself breathed beneath the farmhouse foundation. Cups on the shelf chimed. Lenora gasped in her bedroom. Laurel stood, every instinct yelping to bolt. The vibration intensified, not loud but immense, pressing upward through her socks, an unseen mallet striking frozen bedrock. She grabbed the mantle for balance. The radio cut to static. Between pulses, she heard a distant, hollow report like a single hoof hitting stone. Don't look out, her aunt had warned. But fear of the unknown outweighed obedience. Laurel crossed trembling to the rattling window, wiped a circle in the fog, and stared toward Rook-Fen. Moonlight met snowlight, rendering the field almost phosphorescent. Conifers ringed it like silent witnesses. And there, where the pines gave way to blank white, stood the horse. She knew at once it was the creature of rumor, no farmyard pony, but a being too luminous, too perfect, as if reality around it had been scrubbed clean. Each hair glowed, hallowed by fine ice crystals. Muscles beneath that satin hide twitched with latent storm. Yet the horse was utterly still, head grazing neither up nor down. It faced her, though perhaps it faced everyone. Its eyes were depths of starlight. Laurel's chest constricted. That subterranean beat synchronized with her own pulse, drawing her like tidewater. Something else adorned the pale saddle. No, nothing adorned it, but air above the horse seemed denser, bending starlight in a subtle distortion, the way heat wavers above asphalt. In that blur, she sensed posture, arms, a patience older than anger. Her breath fogged the glass. She should flee to Lenora, yet she could not turn. Outside, the horse exhaled a plume of vapor that ballooned, then dissipated in shape of a reaching hand. The floorboards creaked behind her, Lenora, clutching a quilt around thin shoulders. Her voice emerged a frayed rasp. You feel its rhythm? That's the courting. Back away now, child. Laurel's feet refused. Something shifted in the field. A single snowflake spiraled up instead of down, caught in some reversed gravity near the horse's breast. Then another. Soon scores of flakes rose gently, forming a tiny vortex. Laurel's rational brain muttered updraft, but dread warred with reason. The horse's ears flicked. A pulse hammered, and Laurel's heart stuttered double time. She felt, knew, it invited her. Step outside, cross the porch, let the snow swallow the footprints behind you. Mount the shimmering saddle. Feel invisible arms cage your ribs. Ride into a night where silence breaks like glass under thunderous hooves. The thought thrummed seductive, terrifying. Lenora slapped the window frame. The sound cracked the trance. Laurel staggered back. The horse raised one hoof and stamped. Snow erupted outward in rings. The farmhouse windows shivered. But the spell loosened just enough for Laurel to yank curtains across the pane. She dragged Lenora away, heart slamming. The intensity of the pulses dwindled, thud, 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 until stillness returned like an exhausted wave. They slept little after that. At gray dawn, the field stood empty, only wind scoured drifts, covering any sign of visitation. Laurel convinced herself it had been hallucination bred by fatigue, but Lenora's ashen face proved otherwise. Tonight, it may return. It returns until claimed. Obligations gnawed at Laurel's resolve to stay. Lenora needed insulin fetched from town. Against instinct, Laurel borrowed Lenora's pickup. On her way, she stopped at the general store where the freckled boy, Logan, stocked shelves. She found him, asked about the horse. Color drained from his cheeks. He led her to a back office cluttered with seed catalogs and spoke in urgent whispers. My granddad called it the frost cursor. Said it shows up after the valley's first true quake each winter. Folks who see it alone vanish. Everyone pretends they moved away, but no one's found their cars, their clothes, nothing. They're just gone. And every quake gets louder, like it's hungry again. Logan swallowed. Granddad claimed the riders, a spirit bound to that horse after feeding on a human soul, rides a full circuit through the ridgeline, then returns here when it needs a new guide. Whoever mounts becomes the next invisible rider, trapped till the next quake sets them free. Sounds nuts, I know. But my cousin Jonah disappeared 12 years ago. We found only his scarf by the fence. Laurel tried to ask more, but Logan clammed up, terrified he'd said too much. She returned to the farmhouse through flurrying snow, mind spinning. Could legend hold such weight? She remembered the rising snowflakes, the mirrored heartbeat. If the rider required a soul, it had chosen her. Why? Was invitation enough, or must she willingly step closer? Fear twisted into resolve. Choice meant room for defiance. She spent the afternoon preparing. Boarded windows, banked the stove, rehearsed anything that might block the thrumming call, earplugs, loud music, whispered prayers learned long ago. As twilight bled into violet, Lenora pressed an antique brass locket into Laurel's palm. Inside lay 2 strands of fine white hair. Your great-grandfather's sister, Lenora said. Taken at 16. They found this in the snow. Laurel fastened the chain around her neck. Snow began again, soft as sifted flour. Then, as if someone plucked God's taut string, the pulse fired through the valley. Cups rattled. The radio died. The second heartbeat beat louder than her own. She crushed earplugs deep, yet still the rhythm vibrated behind her sternum. Lenora prayed in fractured murmurs. Laurel forced herself to the door. She would not cower this night. Bundled in parka and boots, she stepped onto the porch. Frost fireworks crackled beneath each exhale. At the bottom of the steps, she paused. The snow-white horse waited precisely where it had before, unmarked by flake or shadow. Air warped gently above its saddle. Laurel's pulse aligned, stomach roiled. Yet she withdrew Logan's gift, road flares stolen from his truck bed. She struck the cap. A spear of red fire hissed to life, spitting sparks. The horse twitched. Its perfect coat reflected blood scarlet. Laurel advanced into knee-high drifts, thrusting the flare outward like a sword. She shouted, only muffled echoes through earplugs reached her. The rider's outline rippled, uncertain. She threw the flare. It sizzled into snow at the horse's hooves, painting writhing shadows. A second, then third flare followed. Copper smoke billowed. The horse reared, silent but violent. Earth surged under Laurel's boots, a tidal lurch that snapped fence posts. Yet she planted her feet. From pocket to throat, she yanked Lenora's locket, wrenched it free, and hurled it at the seething void above the saddle. The locket burst, flame lit, and disappeared into the distortion as if swallowed. A sound like ice splintering through an iron hull screamed across the hollow. Everything convulsed. Snow exploded upward in a white cyclone. Laurel staggered, blinded. The second heartbeat faltered, beat chaotically, then fractured into silence. As the storm settled, she peered through swirling powder. The field was empty. No horse, no imprint, no lingering shape. Only smoking flares fizzing into darkness and a hush, so sudden it rang. The ground no longer vibrated. Somewhere among pines and owl hooted, life resuming its night shift. When Laurel stumbled back up the porch, Lenora wept behind her hands. The older woman claimed she'd felt the curse rip free, a thread snapping after decades. The valley, she hoped, would now sleep. Months later, spring thaw revealed nothing unusual in Rook-Fen, save for a brass locket half buried where snow had melted earliest its chain fused as though struck by lightning, its clasp jammed shut. Laurel buried it beneath the tallest pine. She never again felt the echo of subterranean hooves, though some nights she dreamed of riding fast through clouded moonlight, arms locked in frost-cold embrace until dawn burned everything gold. Travelers still remark on the valley's uncanny hush. No distant trucks, no tremors, just wind combing thin grasses. And if some claim at highway diners that a snow-white horse haunts other mountain towns now, standing sentinel where asphalt ends and silence begins, that a second heartbeat rises beneath their feet if they linger too long, Laurel chooses not to listen. Let distant ridges bear their own legends. She saw the cursor face down by flare light, felt that wild pulsation falter. In Ash-Willow Valley, no thunder rock has rolled since. But when January's first storm knocks power out, Laurel lights one candle anyway, keeps flares by the door, and hums a stubborn cadence to drown the memory of hooves she hopes never to hear again. The valley sleeps on, nestled in drifts cold and clean as the horse once was. And at the edge of night, where stars frost over the empty field, nothing waits for now.